Are we good? Okay. Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone out to our Riverdale City Planning Commission for Tuesday, April 23rd. We'd like to make note that all of the commissioners are present with the exception of Colleen Henstra, who is excused. At this point, we would, as listed on the agenda, open for public comment, but seeing no public present, we will pass on that and move directly to presentation and reports. Mr. Cooper, please.
Thank you, and good evening. Appreciate your time tonight. As I mentioned in the work session, I just have a quick report on the demolition that's happening at the Honda dealership on Riverdale Road. You've probably noticed that they're tearing down the front of the building, and that is subject to plan approval, amended site plan approval that was granted last year, and so that'll create a whole brand new facade for that building, a new addition in the back. And so they're moving some people around internally to accommodate that, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a great thing. I think it'll take probably 12 months for them to complete. That's just a guess. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. And then we did have Ashley Furniture that had their grand opening, their ribbon cutting.
That's right. Have we not met since then? That feels like
No.
a million years ago. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So you're right. They have the biggest sign, so you can't miss it. They are open.
And their Layton store shut down now, right?
That's right. Yeah. So they, again, a wonderful thing for Riverdale, attracting new business, attracting new jobs. So they're very excited. They had the, was it the CEO?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was here, and a whole bunch of executive staff. So it was a nice time. So go buy a bed or a couch or.
Then afterwards, you can take your kids to Bricks and Minifigs.
That's right.
We have some fun new stores.
And then Chuck E. Cheese is coming down the pike, so hopefully we'll be doing furniture, bricks, and Legos, and then
Chuck E. Cheese. There's a lot of excitement
Rats?
around Chuck E. Cheese.
Entertainment. There is. Yeah, people are excited for them to come.
fun fact. I think that the founder of Chuck E. Cheese was the co-founder of Atari, and he is from Utah.
Of Atari?
Alumnus of Davis High.
Wow,
Oh, wow.
awesome.
Utah roots.
All right, let's move on to item D on our agenda, consent items. We have consideration for the meeting minutes from March 12th, 2024 for the work session, and the same date for the regular meeting. Any discussion on those items?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent items.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, those are approved. Next is item E. Action items, consideration of site plan amendment request for Wasatch Kia dealership located 770 West Riverdale Road, Riverdale, Utah 84405, as requested by H&P Investments. Mr. Cooper, please.
Thank you. I have a small presentation that will just be a summary of what was found in your packet in the staff report and the transmittal. So the background on this site is that it is the Wasatch Kia dealership, and in 2017 it underwent a significant remodel and rebrand as Kia corporate demanded, and so it has seen an amended site plan approval with the associated improvements back in 2017, but not all of those improvements were completed. And so here we are again today to now look at some of the improvements that they want to continue with. So it's on 770 West Riverdale Road. It's about 6.25 acres. It's in the C3 zone, and the general plan land use is commercial. So all of those things are the existing conditions. You'll see there and in your packet kind of the history of the timeline. So there was a planning commission recommendation, a favorable recommendation on Valentine's Day in 16? Yep. That went to the council on the 21st. They did table it at the council, and largely due to the fact that there was some discrepancy and dispute around a sidewalk on the north side. You'll see there on the north end of the site, there's a fence line. It's hard to see in the picture because of the orange box, but I'll show you some pictures at the end. Actually, the pictures are in your staff report as well. There's a section there that is back of curb and then asphalt pavement and then the fence. And so that was in dispute in 2017. It was tabled, and then a special council meeting happened 4 days later where they approved it subject to a deferral agreement, essentially, where the owner, in this case H&P Investments, agreed to post a bond and put in the improvements of the sidewalk within 2 years. That agreement never got fully executed, so it was passed back and forth. From what I can tell, never got fully executed. So that sidewalk was never installed, but it is now a requirement of this approval today.
Is their property, what you got yellow all the way around there, that's their whole property?
That's
Even-
one parcel.
Even that grassy area is their property too?
And that grassy area is important because as the improvements are made to the building, which are exterior additions of about 3,380 square feet, that changes, bless you, that changes the nature of the stormwater runoff. And so additions were required to be made in that grassy area for a retention pond that would collect that stormwater and hold it. And you can see that on this site plan. This was the 2017 approved site plan. It had two buildings being proposed at that time. One is the, does this work? No. First building is that building at the top of the map, this rectangular square. That is still being proposed in this proposal, but it was part of the original proposal. The other building, the one on the east, was part of the original proposal and approved, but is no longer being proposed today. That's just a Port Cochure covering, and they're not proposing to build that. So what's under consideration today is the addition of a 3,380 square foot block building for an extension of their service bay and their wash bay. Again, in the 2017 approved site plan, there was some on-site retention that was also required, albeit smaller because our stormwater regulations have changed since then. There's some elevation changes that are required to happen on the east side of either the curb or the landscaping to create somewhat of a ponding area to slow the stormwater flow into the storm drain on Riverdale Road. As part of the original site plan approval, there was some signage and the interior remodel. So fast forward today, what you're considering now is just that building on the north end, the 3,380 square foot building, the associated stormwater improvements, so a pond to be constructed in that grassy field, underground roof drains and other associated pipes that would direct the flow of the new building to that pond and other parts of the site. And then highlighted in yellow, you'll see that sidewalk installation that goes the length of their property from east to west. Here's an elevation rendering or drawing, I guess, of the building. I know it's black and white. It's not very articulate, but it's a little bit better than what's there now, a little bit bigger. Again, they do have an existing building. If you look at the aerial map, you'll see it just there at the top of the building on the north end. And then there's a tent that extends beyond that. So all of that will come down as part of this approval and be replaced by a nice block building. So you'll see in the staff report, we looked at a number of things in terms of our internal review for compliance. First of all, the general plan compliance, the basis of the review for site plans, which is stipulated in Riverdale City Code 1025. We look at the appropriate uses in the zone. There's certain regulations in 1025 related to general development standards. Also 1014 regulations that are applicable to all site plans and all developments. And then the biggest part is really the stormwater management and regulation. And it probably goes without saying, but just to put it on the record, that this is just a site plan application. So the building, the construction plan review and subsequent building permit is a different process, and that is yet to be finished. And a building permit has yet to be issued. It's subject to tonight's consideration. So based on our review, we recommend to you all an approval of this application for an amended site plan based on the fact that the applicant has indeed responded to all of the city comments and has corrected them to our satisfaction. We have a final site plan that can be constructed, and again, their next step would be to get the building plans reviewed and permitted to construct that new building. They would have to pay the fees and the other things associated with that. So we feel that given those two things, we recommend approval. So your possible findings tonight could be that you find that you agree with staff and that you find that it does meet the general plan and that it does meet the city code based on our staff review. And so you could forward a recommendation to the city council for approval. You could modify what you've seen tonight with something that you feel that we've missed that is a regulation or something that might be a requirement from you all that's part of our code. You could deny it based on the fact that you feel it doesn't meet the general plan and or the Riverdale City Code, or you could table it if you feel like there's missing information that you need to make your decision. And so that's my report. I would defer back to the council or the commission and be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. The road just east of that, is that road, I mean, they're the only ones that really use that road. Is that a city road, or is that, do they own that road?
They own a portion of that road, yes. There's a section, well, actually, I would say that they own all the road and then 5 feet into the landscape area. So it's not a city road.
Okay, because I know a lot of people take a cutoff there on back over to the Riverdale Road, and
Right.
I find that's really dangerous sometimes because they're trying to get their cars in and out on that road.
Mm-hmm. So that's not part of the consideration that we've made here, given.
No, it is. It's just a question I
Yeah.
had because I wondered about that road. I've wondered about that for a long time and wondered if that's ours or theirs.
I wondered about it myself, and in fact, I had to ask the applicant for what's called an ALTA survey, which delineates the property lines and shows any easements and anything that might affect the land. And indeed, it showed that their property does go beyond the road width and into the landscaping area. And that's part of this approval. They'll be actually making improvements to that landscaping area to raise the elevation to create some ponding capacity for stormwater runoff.
I have a question, Brennan. How about what's the new retention system that used to be then changed to today, and the expansion of the holding tank or the ground? Have they expanded the ground to contain the amount of more water coming off the building, the runoff? And how are they checking that water before it goes into the ground once it goes into the retention basin?
So right now it's just a cobble-lined retention pond. Its capacity has increased from the original approval in 17 to today, which is part of why they're back. The other part is their original approval expired. And so between the engineer on record for the applicant and our public works director, as well as our city engineer consultant, they looked at those capacity requirements, which is, I believe, 80% of all stormwater runoff has to be retained in that pond. And so the engineer adjusted those calculations based on an approved method and adjusted the drawings accordingly.
And how do they test the water before it goes out into the ponds?
I don't know of any requirement that was given to have a water or oil separator or anything that would test or control the water. It's a roof drain directly into the pond.
So it's nothing to do with internal of the building and the operations internal.
That's right. This is all
external water from the roof.
That's right.
Isn't it for the original approval? It's a 2-year completion with a, what is it? Is it a 6-month extension possibility?
I believe it's 1 year with a 6-month.
Okay. So not completing it, that's why we're revisiting this then.
And it's changed, yeah.
Yeah.
Had they performed the work that was previously approved, then obviously we wouldn't be here. But given the nature of the time that's elapsed and the change in the regulations and the change in their proposed plan, it has all kind of culminated into this review.
All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Cooper, if I might, we had this addition you said is going to include a mechanic bay as well as a wash bay. Is that what you said?
Wash bay, service bay. So
Service bay.
yeah, I'm sorry. Service bay probably, now that I hear you say it, probably does mean mechanics bay. This is a wash bay.
Oh, this is a wash bay.
yeah.
Okay.
I called it service because as they leave the service, it's attached to the service area. So as they're leaving, they're washing the vehicles.
Okay. Okay. And is all of the drainage for that compliant?
Meaning what they're using in terms of washing the vehicle. That is, I'm looking at the drawing here and I see the roof drains that are associated with the pond.
But won't they have to come back for a final approval for the building? And it would be addressed then, that this is just
This is just a site plan.
a site plan approval.
Right. So
As opposed to the final approval for the building.
so are you asking about the building permit
Well,
and,
as far
and
as in
associated with hers?
relation to-
With
Right.
what she's referring to.
So I heard you ask the quality of the water and if the quality of the water is being dealt with. Did I misunderstand?
Yeah, and if there's adequate drainage and ensuring the safety of whatever water comes out of that facility.
Right. So the building plans will likely include the review of a floor drain and the associated piping with that. But in this case, I don't see any requirement or reference on the drawings here for any type of separator.
Okay, so this will come back to us then
No,
as a building plan? No?
you all don't review
Okay.
building plans.
So how do we know that that meets compliance? We're just dealing with, you're talking external water, nothing to do internal with the
Right.
separator system, I think is what
Right.
you're talking about. Is the separator system is critical to the operation, but you're going to let this go and approve without that concern being addressed?
Right, because all of this is addressing today is the site drainage under the site plan.
So if we approve this, then we have no control or say as to how the operations, how they dispose of the internals of the water on a separator.
Right, but you can be confident in knowing that the review and approval of the building plans would be subject to the building code, and so those things would be compliant to that.
I have a question why we wouldn't be reviewing the building plans. Because you said that we don't. I thought that the only part that we didn't approve was for residential.
No, I'm not familiar with any planning commission that deals with the building code.
With the building.
So,
The building.
so yeah, as you get a construction plan review submittal to receive a building permit, that generally doesn't go to the planning commission. That's reviewed internally by our building official and permitted through him.
Final site plan.
But usually we see a final site
Yeah,
plan.
usually we see his final site plan. That's where I'm getting a little
I think we're all
confused.
confused on that.
Where I'm at too, I'm confused with that. Having things passed to the council without having our approval on it, typically we usually give our opinion on something like that. I think we're all confused in that motion.
Michelle, are
Can
we?
I,
Help us.
I think that the confusion is that this one's kind of picked up again in the middle of the process.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we don't have a preliminary on this one because it was done in 2017 and
right?
we're only addressing the things that have changed.
Okay.
really, and reapproving.
So instead of having a preliminary and a final, we're just doing a final site plan on this one, is what you're saying.
Right. This is an amended site plan.
Okay.
And so this is a site plan that's been previously approved that's being amended. And so you're looking at those amendments as a final action recommended to the council.
Okay, because I feel like in things that we've done past that are similar to this, whenever there's a new building going in or anything like that, then we are made aware of like how the drainage is going to work or water and oil separators. And especially if we're going to be washing vehicles, then I want to make sure that that's all being taken care of
Chemicals.
appropriately.
Would that have been addressed with the original back in 17?
I'm looking at it here.
Or
kind of
could
a
that be
niche.
something that was,
This is just a niche to
Missed or-
address the drainage off the roof and having to add that. So, I don't know, maybe.
I didn't see
I
anything.
can
It's
see
a very
wiggle
long
room for
packet,
that.
but I didn't notice anything.
Yeah. Again, it's something that wasn't part of the review nor part of the proposal on the plan in terms of how they're draining the interior of that building.
But that's addressed through the permitting for the building permit based on,
It would be part of their review, yeah.
yeah.
And so I can understand your confusion because a lot of times you would have the exterior building elevations as part of the proposed application. This is more about the nature of the site versus the actual materiality of the building and those kind of things. And there is no preliminary final.
Okay, so what we're talking, just help me understand. So what we're talking about here, is it because they already have the drainage systems in place? Is that why we're not discussing it here? Is that something that we need to be concerned about before we pass on
Internal or
approval?
external?
Internal.
I don't.
The wash bay.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how they're managing that water now. I would imagine that the floor could slope out of the front door, and so all of that just sheet flows out of the building. There is a slope there, so that could be one way that they're managing the runoff from the washing operation. It could be how they're proposing to manage it now in this plan. Given the fact that they haven't included any internal drainage that's connected to the underground system that they're proposing to go in the retention pond, I would think that it's either sheet flow or part of the building plan review.
It would have to go through the sewer, wouldn't it?
Well, they'd have to, I mean, even some of these car wash companies have separators
And recyclers, yeah, yeah.
I had
They
a,
already have a wash bay and they're adding more?
Yeah, this is already a wash bay.
Okay.
are they grandfathered in? Is there such a thing as being grandfathered in compared to today's compliance?
The fact that they're proposing a new addition with new construction, it would trigger all the new standards. So I'm looking at the original site plan from 2017 that included the 2 building additions, and there is a proposed sand and oil separator in that. But if I go to the proposal, the current proposal that's under consideration tonight, I don't know if I see one there. There's a lot going on with the drawing, so let me double check. So that could address the internal flow of water.
I would feel more comfortable passing on a favorable recommendation with that piece resolved, because I don't see any other issues with this at all. But that is a concern to me, that we just aren't really sure on the status or what's happening with it.
It's a really good question, and I appreciate you bringing it up. So in the case of the motion options, you could do a number of things. You could approve subject to us finding out that answer and correcting it to the satisfaction of the Public Works Director and the City Engineer. You could table the decision until we actually get that information and bring it back to you definitively. It could just be one of those things where subject to staff questions.
Okay. Does anyone else have thoughts on this, on the matter?
I think it's valid. I think what your point is a valid concern
Oh, yeah.
because you're building 3,300 square feet more internally, and people's going to want to make sure that that's in compliance, whatever goes into that separator, if they continue with that process. And I'm okay with the rainwater coming on the top. That's fine, but it's the internal that's concerning of how that's going to be controlled. And then what's the process for checking that system? How often do they check them systems for compliance? That's up to the code enforcement, I guess, but
That would be in their stormwater management plan that they've given us. I don't recall seeing any durational language in there about that, but I can double check. We can make that as part of our checkup on this item. That it's included, the maintenance of it's included in the stormwater management plan, and that we do review it for compliance in terms of the current proposed site plan. It's a good question. Or we could table it to determine that definitively, and we can come back to you.
Well, I have to agree with her because I keep thinking, are they washing these vehicles and letting the water just run out into the street and not going through the separator? I mean, we have to know a little bit about the floor system. We have to know a little bit about what they've put into place to take care of this problem. Because if they're just letting it run out into the street, that is not correct either.
Right.
So we need to know what have they put into place to make sure that it goes through the separator and where it's supposed to be going.
Brandon, I've got a friend that's asked me, he has his own business in a car wash, and he goes to different cities and counties, and he was rejected by Riverdale because how strict the policy is about washing vehicles on people's property when he goes up there to do that type of stuff. I think the public needs to know that it's going to be handled in a proper way, and it's not going to go into the storm system in any way, that it is contained and watched on a regular
Properly
basis.
I think maybe it throws us off a little bit because we don't have anything from Sean Douglas on here.
Right.
So his comments, I think, are in the staff report. I think I included an attachment. The sand and oil separator was not part of his original comments. Again, because the original submission and approval in 17 did include it, and it was approved with the installation of that. And so the question really isn't, was there an intention to build it? The question is, does it carry over to these plans? And that's what I'm going to investigate.
And I think an additional question along with that would be if we're enlarging the wash bay, we have I would assume a larger expected volume of water that we're dealing with, and does the sand and oil separator that they have, will it be able to handle the additional amount of water that is going to be generated?
I'm not quite sure that the plans are clear as to whether or not they have one. I think the original submission included the installation of one with the newer building.
Right.
And that would have been sized appropriately. The building size from then till now has stayed the same.
Okay.
But looking at the difference of the old plan versus the new plan, that there's a clean out called, but there isn't an oil and water separator, sand and water separator. So that's, I think, the question at hand is does that carry through? And if so, we need to get it on the drawing so that you feel comfortable with that being clear.
Okay, well, I'd like to make a motion to table the application by H&P Investments on behalf of Wasatch Kia for a site plan amendment for the proposed development located at 770 West Riverdale Road, Riverdale, Utah, based on the absence of certain information necessary to make a decision, which is just that we need to understand if there is in fact a water and oil separator of some kind and how they're going to handle
Storm
this,
drainage.
the drainage from the wash bay.
Very good.
Any further discussion on the motion?
I have to approve that too.
Second?
No, I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a second. Michelle, would you poll the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Herman,
Yes.
Commissioner Spires,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes?
Commissioner Polson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nye,
Yes.
Commissioner Nolan.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We'll table that and we will wait until we have additional information before we proceed with a final approval. All right, thank you. Having addressed that, we'd now move to item F. Comments from the Planning Commission and city staff.
I have one. Our previous planning commissioner, Kathy Eskelson, lives just off 700 West. I'm trying to remember the subdivision name. I should know this, but
River Glen?
not River Glen. But it's
Cottonwood Estates.
it's the patio, the new patio homes where
Just in the little
Kathy lives
cul-de-sac.
in that little cul-de-sac. She had asked staff about having a sign put up that says this is not a through street because there's kids that are there playing and there's cars driving in and out quickly all the time. And that's a pretty busy road anyway. And I think with the current housing market conditions, people are just driving around trying to see what they can find on their own. And no one's gotten back to her yet about a sign.
So she and I talked. I called her after she had left a message. And so I indicated to her that I would talk to Sean about that. And so I just haven't had a chance to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but she and I talked.
Oh, okay. Shoot. Okay. I'll let her know.
The ball's in my court on that,
Okay. Perfect.
but we did have a conversation.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other items to bring up?
With the spring runoff, do we know if they're going to close down the trail at all?
I haven't heard anything.
I haven't either.
I don't think
But the river's full.
I don't think it's advanced far enough that or that we've had enough
No.
moisture that it's going to be a concern this year like it wasn't last year.
I haven't heard much discussion about it in staff
Okay.
meeting.
Perfect.
I don't know if I should bring this up here or not. But we have recycling garbage cans and we have red recycling garbage cans. Well, families change, just in case you want to know. And sometimes you have a whole bunch of kids and sometimes you don't have a whole bunch of kids. Sometimes you have husbands and sometimes you don't. But anyway, I came in about 2 months ago to the clerks upstairs and I says, I want to know what I have to do to get rid of the recycling container because I don't want it anymore. And the woman says, you have to have it. I went, oh. I thought, no. I've got friends that have sold their homes, and when they somebody else buys their homes, they don't have to have a recycling machine. They don't have to have a recycling can. And then the girl said, well, you don't have to pay for it, so just don't worry about it. I went, oh, yeah, you pay
you
for
do.
it.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, yeah, you got to pay for it. So then I checked a little further, and they said to me, when this came through, is they gave you like 6 months to have this, and then if you wanted it, you could continue to have it, and forever, but you have to pay for it, and there's no stopping it ever. Now, if you ask for 2 garbage cans, and you don't want the second one, they take the second garbage can away and don't charge you for it. Why can't this be the same thing with a recycling can? Because when your family goes from 10 in your family to 1, I probably can fill mine up in maybe 4 months. But yet I'm paying for it every single month.
We've had other people with this same consternation.
I think that we should have the option to be able to say, I don't need it anymore.
Especially when it's not a knee-jerk decision. You've had a complete change of life event happen,
Yeah.
and your family goes to one. It's huge.
I have a guy out in South Ogden that he says, I don't want it, so I put my cow manure in it.
So I'm the new guy here. We'll do a little bit of investigation. I do know of some privately provided recycling programs that are subsidized. So you need an opt-in threshold to make the whole program work, whether people use it or not. And so opting out is discouraged because then that creates a larger subsidy. I don't know if this is one of those programs, but we can do some investigation and get back to you.
But what you're going to do is you're still going to penalize the person when they don't need it.
That's right. That's generally the negative parts of these programs where they require a certain minimum mandatory participation so that it equalizes across the whole system.
But if I was to sell my home, the next person doesn't have to have it.
So I'm not quite sure what program is set up in Riverdale, so either Michelle or I can look in that.
And if we need to provide death certificates, we'll do that. I'm
Our
not
children
kidding.
moving out.
I'm not kidding.
Well, yeah, I'm not either because it is a problem.
One thing I've noticed too is that those cans, maybe they're recycled plastics, but they seem to be poor quality. I drive around and I see most of them are cracked, holes in them. Mine is.
Then I guess the next question is it really, does it really pay Riverdale City to do this? I mean, what is the benefit?
The city, it doesn't.
What is
I
it?
think a lot of the residents want a recycling option because when I first moved here, I don't believe there was a recycling option. I think that's something that was added later because a lot of residents.
I know there is some
in it.
debate as far as what actually is taking place and what is being
That's
recycled.
a question I
And
had.
the cost effectiveness of it and
Yeah.
things like that.
Because I looked at this the other day, and I think we're only supposed to be putting items 1 and 2 that are labeled 1 and 2 in there. But I know that
He's shaking his head.
No, I'm not saying no. I'm
Oh.
just it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
If there's very few things that you can recycle in the first place.
yeah, and
You'll never
whether
see me
they
sign up for
actually
that
are
crap.
being recycled or whether they're being pushed to the landfill, regardless.
Well, Robinson does them both.
But they have 2 trucks that come around.
Right,
Yeah, they're
but
different.
Robinson does, they're in
Right.
charge of both. I don't know, but
It's an interesting discussion, and maybe that's something that the council can look at. But
So I've got the code pulled up and I don't see anything that says that you can't get rid of it. It just says how much it costs and how many you get. And
Well,
that
they would not let me cancel it. I want you to know.
Wow, that's amazing.
I've heard that from several people, and it's not because you just one day decide you just don't want to recycle. It's because your home went from 10 people to 5 people to 1.
And you're saying they is Robinson or they is the city?
The city.
City.
I think it's the city. Probably has to do with the contract they have with
It
Robinson.
would be good then to get some clarification and make
staff
sure
might
everyone
be under the
understands.
impression or direction that that's,
Yeah.
that's what's required.
Yeah. We'll check into that and report back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to hit you with your bottle.
Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn before Amy gets out of control.
Before Amy
We
hits
have a
me.
second?
Second.
Second it.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
who seconded?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think there were a few.
Rick, you and your water bottles. man.
Everybody seconds that motion.
Oh my
That's a
gosh.
no argument.
No. You're good. You're good. Just don't hit my shoulder.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
He's probably saying,
Yeah,
I've never had such a
mine
group like
done.
this that complains about
Who's
everything.
doing it?
Sorensen?
I
Travis
kind of
Henry
felt
do
like
it.
it was smooth sailing, and then I was like, wait a minute.
Yes.
That was a great catch.
shoulder
I've never
surgery
tabled
there is.
something. I feel like usually that's a pretty rare
I knew I had to have it
usage, but I
fixed.
just didn't
When
feel
water
good
goes
about.
into the drainage
We had
ditch,
done
where does
Kent's
it go from there?
And I know his
Into the
dad.
city line? That drain,
I
you know, you have a drainage pond.
fell and
Where's it go from
dislocated
there?
my shoulder.
The retention
And,
pond?
tore